Hey, welcome back. 16.4 CrossFit Games Open. I am Jared Cohen at cpbgrowth.com. Another episode of Preventative Practice here with a dosage of movement prep. My last week's video was our shortest one. I want to see if we can beat that as we're continuing to build on concepts, and therefore I shouldn't have to maybe go in as depth of explanations. Adding to that point, for 16.4, big meat and potatoes in my opinion as far as prep, being able to endure the dosage is going to be the deadlifts. So this workout starts out with 55 deadlifts. I believe it's 155 for women and 225 for men. And so what I want to refer you back to is before the Open this year, I did a sample movement prep video for what was the Open workout for 14.3, which was a whole bunch of deadlifts and box jumps. And that's on my channel. And so what you'll see here is I'm bringing some stuff back from that video. So for a little extra explanation, we've given you the time markers for each of these pieces from that previous video, and you can go check that out and just get more of an in-depth look at that, so that in this video I can sort of hit it a little faster for you, okay? As always, we're starting with our full body controlled articular rotations. These are movement drills at the outer limits of rotation, helping you prime the system, stimulate those articular adaptations, and make sure that things are actually fully being used, okay? Again, go to the playlist from the Preventative Practice channel. You got your cars from head to toe. Again, we're seeing one set of 2 in both directions. And I want to just give you like a little different take on the shoulder cars, where you can beef this up a little bit. And what we're looking at here is adding some load. And I would do this kneeling. So this is a 1 pound plate. This is a 1 pound plate. If you don't have 1 pound plates in your gym, a 2.5, but I definitely wouldn't go heavier than a 2.5. The key here is to go slow. So I'm in a kneeling position, and the weight actually gives me a little bit more of that proprioception, that body awareness. Belly is tight, back is flat, flexion, external rotation. I max out that flexion, external rotation, and then I'm getting as much internal rotation as I can. Be mindful of what's happening at the wrist. I want to stay neutral. And then if you can take the camera from back here, you should see that my palm is now facing up. I have that full internal rotation, and then we come back out in front. So that would be one direction, right? I do another rep of that. My other direction now is going into shoulder extension, internal rotation, and then notice how I flip that thumb up, external rotation. I'm finishing in that overhead position. Okay, so just another way. You wouldn't have to necessarily do this separate from the introductory cars, but a way if, you know, this is starting to feel good with just your body weight, or something that may give you a little bit more feedback as to what's happening through that joint capsule, okay? We're gonna come back to the upper body. I wanna give you some progressions and some technique thinking on the handstand push-up, but most of the movement prep is gonna happen on this lower body side because I think deadlifts, wall balls, and the row really speaks for itself in trying to prep the nervous system for receiving so much load down below, okay? So, monster walk. As you can see there, it's 2 sets, 10 yards there and back. This is a really good way to just get the hip primed, that outer glute musculature starting to fire to better stabilize that outward rotation of the hip. So real quick here, notice the position I'm starting in, the feet are straight. I move out of that initial starting position, and then I'm always resetting. I don't allow the feet to slide in too much. I want to try and maintain the tension. This is going to get pretty burning sensation just before that 10-yard mark, okay? So I got 10 yards there, and then I'll take it back 10 yards. I'm going to work this with a pretty upright posture. Belly is tight, I'm working on that toe forward position. Okay? Moving up. Banded, hip flexion and extension. You got 1 minute here. A little flow. Trying to embrace the dynamic aspect of this prep piece. Okay, so 2 hip shapes. This is my hip flexion shape, and I challenge you to think about what does that shape look like in the bottom of your wall ball. So a little bit more of that angled shin, upright torso, knee out, and then what does it look like with more of a vertical shin, loading the hamstrings for the deadlift. Shape 1 and number 2. Okay, now I bias this hip extension, nice and tall, squeeze the butt, press forward. I have a minute of moving back and forth, and then I'll get a minute with the other side. Next, 90-90 flow. So we've seen this before, and I think the first video that we did for 16.1, I did a banded variation, but here I just want to embrace the good old just dynamic movement aspect of this. Okay, so 90 degrees, 90 degrees. Try and keep the heels in close, okay? And then you're gonna flow back and forth, 2 minutes total. When I flow, when I move, keep this front leg down as long as I can, belly is tight. I open up from the trail. Once I max that range out, I then come into this bear sit position, and I slowly, and in a controlled manner, reset to the other side. And then again. I can spend some time over this front leg here. Wait for it, wait for it. Try not to let this come up. Drive that pinky toe down. Slowly internally rotate. In those wall balls, people start becoming very knee in. So spend some time making sure that if you do end up knee in, you have built the tissue resiliency to buffer that. All right, and then last, well, second to last here, hamstring passive range hold. You got 2 ways you can do this here. This is another functional range conditioning concept. We spend a lot of time thinking about, like, I gotta stretch those hamstrings, I need length through the hamstrings, but we don't spend a lot of time building the strength in shortened positions. So if you have the mobility to put yourself into this position where you can grab this heel to butt, this is where I'd like you to do the passive range hold for. So notice, I passively take my heel to my butt, meaning that I have some external manner in which I'm holding my foot here. I squeeze the butt belly tight, and then I'm going to let go and try and avoid this lag, right? I almost want to put my hand here to think about trying to drive that heel into my hand, back into the butt. I'm trying to really contract the hamstrings in this shortened position. About 10 seconds here. You may feel a bunch of cramping, and then let that go, okay? Cramping, neuromuscular confusion. You've never really taken the muscle to that place of contraction, and we want to prep that. You're going to alternate back and forth between sides. Notice here, I'll do the other side for you in standing. Okay? Squeeze the butt, belly tight. When you're ready, let go, contract hard. Try and drive that heel back into the butt. Ribs are still down. 10 seconds here. You can put the hand here for a little tactile cue. Try and reach up, reach up, reach up. 10 seconds, and then release. On the deadlift and rower, I feel like this is where that becomes really key. Especially on the rower, people really neglect their hamstrings, and so to give you some of that priming of the musculature to really be able to push away from that fan will help you a bunch. I've strategically put the movement prep in this order. The hamstrings are a little toasty now, so we'll finish up with taking them into that lengthened position. I got 2 bands here. The mini band and or a hip circle would work just fine. And then bigger jump stretch bands. Coming on top. 1 big set of 30 good mornings. See if you can bias the feet a little wider, squeeze the butt, drive that. I want to keep this neutral head position, okay? Katrina Davidsdottir did a phenomenal job for most of her repetitions of really keeping that neutral position. Sarah Sigmundsdottir, on the other hand, less optimal in my opinion. Right? Very overextended for a lot of her movements. Yeah, she won this one, but over a long weekend, who had came up on top? It was Katrina Davidsdottir, and in my opinion, that's due to her more quality movement, and she can buffer over a longer range of time and workout demands. So again, 30 total, get it done. Work on the length of those hamstrings now after prepping them in a shortened position. Okay, lastly, we have some beautiful pictures drawn by my lovely girlfriend to help you conceptualize what's happening in the kick of the handstand push-up, okay? I'm going to talk about these preparatory pieces first, spending some time kicking up, spending some time descending into that bottom position, and then what's going on here. So just so you can see it here first, you got your starting position, head is on the ground, this butt is against the wall. You then got to take the hips to a baseline loaded position. So you can see from this extended hip position, we take the hips into a little bit of flexion and knee flexion, hip flexion and knee flexion. We're about 90 degrees here. And then this is where the action takes place. After I've gotten in baseline, I can pause here, but from here, once I try to close that hip a little lower, I have to immediately extend, open up, and that's how I'm going to use that momentum to get through, okay? So you can pause here, but as soon as you start closing down to get that kickoff, you have to immediately turn things back around. And I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so first, I would just do a set of 10, just kick up. Warm this position of getting to the wall and working on being in that finish of your handstand push-up. Now we know we have this standard with the tape, so usually I'm telling people point those toes here. Let's actually prep. Toes are going to point towards your face, so you want to really work through, press through the ground, get those heels to rise up so you make sure you're hitting that standard every time. Okay, we got 10 of those. Then we're working on the descent. The descent is important so that we're not just falling down. Notice too, I am loading my shoulders by pushing my head in front of my hands. Okay, I have this tripod here. What I don't want to do is have that head to be right inside the hands. In this position, I will have no access to my shoulder, and that's where you're going to see a lot of the overextension compensation because you've lost that ability to recruit the shoulder as your prime mover. Okay, let's look at the kick. I'm in this bottom position. Hip is extended, knees extended. Baseline. Okay, about 90 degrees here. So notice I can hang out here, but now this is where I'm going to turn it around. Close, open. Point those toes towards your face, reach through the heels. Again, baseline, close, open. Reset. Baseline, close, open. Heels, press through, try and spin your hands into the floor, that external rotation, upward pressure. One more time. Baseline, close, open, push through the heels. Ladies and gentlemen, that is all I have for you this week, 16.4. I wish you all the best. I am Jared Cohen, preventative practice, train with purpose, and I'll see you next week as we close this year out. Thank you.